what I just mentioned. So I'm just going back here, getting this. So everything is now included in a document.ready. That means this code will only load once the DOM has finished loading. So let's go here, and now it says, "Hey, are you Arnold?" I'm gonna put yes, but it doesn't give me any result, right? Well, that's because we've only done a console.log, so it looks like there isn't any result. If I check console, it actually says, "Hey, Arnold." If I wanted to print this out, what could I use instead? If I wanted to print to the screen. If I wanted to pop up. Not return. Alert. Alert. That's one of them. Not alter, but alert. Okay. Alert. Okay. Good guess, though. Okay. So, put alert. 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 Now I already have some functionality. So now if I go here, refresh the page, are you Arnold? I'm going to put no. It's going to say, hey, not Arnold. So there's some functionality already. So we already started creating some functionality within our page without necessarily having to interact with this index.html at all. Now, if we wanted to interact with some of the HTML, we could. Right now, I'm going to comment that out because I don't want that. Let's see. Here's something we could do. Instead of just putting "Hey Arnold," we could change the HTML inside one of our elements. So let's change all of them. So let's change the header to so now if I refresh this page and it says, "Hey, are you Arnold?" and I put yes. Oh, nothing happens. Oh, duh. Need that dot there. Is that it? The dot? Yeah. But yes. And look at that. Now my text has changed to "Hey Arnold," just based on people's user input. So you can actually say, like, which theme do you prefer? Do you prefer this theme, this theme, or this theme? And then you can have them choose, and then it changes the entire theme, entire CSS and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Do you want to take me through those steps? So this would be name. Well, in this case, it wouldn't be like you'd have to check the name. But let's just make it. You wouldn't actually even need to use an if-then statement for that. You can just say dot header text is going to be val. Hey, your name. We can comment this out. So this is what David was asking. So you say, "Hey, what's your name?" And I could put Omar, so it's going to say Omar, 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 Omar. So it looks kind of creepy, right? And you can even make it even creepier, say what's your name? You can make it really weird. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this kind of functionality. So I want you guys to think about different ways that you can use this JavaScript and jQuery to manipulate your DOM to create functionality, to do things that you want to do on your page. I mean, you guys are the creative ones. I want you guys to think of different ways. Look at different examples that people use, yes, but think of your own ways to do it. So I just came up with really stupid, weird, wacky ways of using it. But I want you guys to do the same weird, wacky things too. Cool. So we understand how switch statements work now? We good on that? Yeah? All right. So now we're going to return Boolean values from functions. Now it sounds complicated, but it's actually really easy. All you're saying is when a function returns a value, you want it to return either true or what's the other Boolean value? False. So it's as simple as, okay, let's say that you have a function, and I'm going to enlarge this by putting it into Sublime Text. So let's say that you have a function called isEqual. And isEqual takes in two arguments, a and b. And if a equals b, then it's going to return true. Else, it's going to return false. So if I run isEqual, and I put 1 and 1, and I put that into an alert, let's see what happens. Oh, true. So let me get rid of this, so we don't need this right now. Let me just delete that. Okay, so this returns a true value, and this returns a false value. Simple enough, right? So if A equals B, that returns true. I mean, that's already true, right? So if it's true, then return, you're just returning literally the words true and false. And sometimes you want that, right? If something is right or wrong, you want to know, is it right or wrong? Is it true or is it false? So if it's false, then you can do something with it. So var answer equals isEqual, and now you're just storing the value into answer, and you're going to use that later on. So if someone put false, then you're going to say, okay, well, now we can move on and do some other functionality. Can anyone give me an example of how I could use that later, that answer? Like, let's say if answer equals true, can you think of anything wacky? No wacky moods today? No. How about that? So let's see what happens now. Holy shit, that's crazy. Because 1 is equal to 1. Now if I put this, it's going to end up with, nah. So you can do some cool stuff, and you can even change other things. So this answer was true, then you can change other stuff. A lot of things can happen. It can be like a chain of events. Okay, so you can return early pattern for functions. Now what this means is whenever you have a return statement, anything after the return will not show. Or sorry, will not be executed. So let's say that you have a function called myFun, and it says alert hello, and then there's another alert that says bye bye. Cool? So the first one says alert hello, and then it says return world. Now, whenever you do a return, any code below that return will just not run. So when I run this, let's see what happens. What do you think is going to happen? Hello? That's it. So this never gets run. Any code below this will not run. Okay? Return means you're saying everything after that I don't care about. Just give me like the world. Just give me this world statement. Okay. Now we're getting to JavaScript objects. So we just finished up switch statements. We just finished up some parts of functions. Now JavaScript objects are really important. So JavaScript objects are the same as objects in any other object-oriented programming language. Objects are very important because it's the basis of what the programming language is based on. It's what composes what the language is based on. Meaning, like, an object-oriented programming language is like, oh, okay, this this programming language uses objects, so it's very important. And objects can be anything. For example, it can be a human, dog, fire extinguisher, an abstract concept, things like that. But essentially, a object is just anything with a list of properties and values. So if something has a list of properties and values, then it's an object, right? So this property, or I don't know, it has a size, it has a weight, it has a color, it has tensile strength, compressive strength, it has durability, it has opacity, it has a lot of different properties, right? And the values of each are different, right? So the color is black, the tensile strength is low, it's like, something really low, I don't know. The fragility is high. It's highly fragile. Weight is very low, so it's weight in grams. So these are different properties and values that make up this object. This object is a cloth container, right? So just like that, objects are the same thing. So a dog, for instance, so this, what are we calling this? So this object is called dog. It has a name of Mr. Buttons. It has legs with a number of 4 legs, the property of tails with a value of 1, and enemies, and it has an array for the value of its enemies. And the elements in the array are water, cats, and that effing squirrel, right? So these are the different elements that go inside these are the different elements that go inside the array. The array is a value of the property. The property is inside this object. So again, what's the name of this this object over here? Dog. And what are the 4 different properties of this object? Exactly. What are different values of this object? Exactly. Perfect. So you guys are getting this really fast. So objects are useful for storing data in a structured way and can represent real-world objects like a cat, or a dog in this case. Okay. So we have a dog. And now let's see what we want to do. You guys got that really fast.
So under that, can you also put var as a cat
Yep.
in the same?
Yeah. So actually that was it. You guys got that really fast. Did everyone not understand that? You guys understood that really fast. Okay. So now again, I want you guys to go in a group, and you guys are going to create a function that returns either true or false, depending on the input. Okay? So create a function. Again, it's going to either return a true or false, depending on the input. Then you're going to create an object, give it 4 different properties and values. And you're going to do this in your projects, okay? Someone get the lights? Oh, yeah. Thank you. So discuss the concepts with each other first. I started making the slides look a little bit nicer. Hopefully it doesn't look as ugly anymore. Or you guys are still like, ugh, horrible design. Saturday afternoon, especially.
Now, the one I didn't really get was this one.
So that one, when you run my fun, anything after return will just not run. That's all. That's all it's saying. In any function, whenever you have a return, anything under a return will not run. It just won't be executed.
So why even have this float in there?
It's just that's just what you wanted. Like it could be anything. Let's say that you had return a variable or return like let's say you did a bunch of calculations up here, and then you're saying okay now return the variable that holds all those calculations.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, objects are even more important in gaming. So, if someone could get the lights, please. Now, in gaming, you use objects to interact with one another, and you can actually make them interact in such a way that makes it really interesting. So, I actually created a small game in Java, non-JavaScript, where I built this game based on this universe called Warhammer 40k. It's really nerdy, whatever. It's really cool to me because I was able to pit any two armies, give them different point values, and they would randomly attack each other until only one remained. So you're able to do this with objects because each object can have different properties and values. The properties and values, instead of age and height, it can be powers, health, mana, all that crap, right? Like attack strength, stamina. If you guys, any of you guys not played any video games before? You guys have at least played one video game before, right? So you guys know like, the basics, like, and a character, like, Mario has certain health or, he has certain attacks and things like that. So this is what happens with objects. Each one of these are just objects. So Mario is an object. He has properties and values. If you want to get more advanced in like, RPGs, if you guys played RPGs before, like Final Fantasy 3, where you have, Setzer, he has like, certain mana, health, attack, agility, all these different things. These are properties and values. The values of the agility is like 60 or like 80 or something like that. And when they attack someone, that determines like, what it does. Each one of these properties can have different values. If they want to perform an action, then the value of that property is generally a function. When a value of a property is a function, then that value is considered a method. So when you guys have been using all these methods, the CSS method, the length, so many methods that exist, right? The dot something. So let's say that I used .txt, right? You guys remember me doing this? .txt.
Yes.
This is a method. So this method is part of an object. Now what I mean by a function, so what I mean by a method being part of an object is an object looks something like this. So you have var, well let's just add it to this, right? Let's just put
So basically, you click on attack, it's gonna call out a function.
yeah. So now if you did like dog.attack, it would actually do something. So you can take in, let's see, enemy. Dot Minus 20 or something like that. It's 20. Yeah. Okay. So you can do something like that. So whenever it attacks, it reduces the enemy's health by 20. So health could be 100. So there you go. So now you have two different properties. You have health, you have attack. And the value of this property is now a function. So that means this attack method is a method. So this is a method, right? Because it's working on an object. So this object has access to this method. So any jQuery object, so jQuery object is equal to something like that, and there's somewhere in there's something that looks like this. Okay, so there's a text method for all jQuery objects, and it looks something like this, and it's going to have all this functionality inside that says like, okay, they change the text, and this is going to happen, or if they send this to text, and this is exactly what happens, right? Okay. Alright, so you can access objects properties with the dot operator, the bracket notation, or with variables. Now, that sounds confusing again, but it's actually pretty simple. So let me do this. So we have our same dog, right? But let's say that we want to just get the name of the dog. To get the name of the dog, we just do, I'm going to comment these out. We just create a variable, call the name, and we do dog.name. Now, what do you think is going to be saved under the name? So what is it going to be? I hear you. Mr. Buttons. You guys got it right. So Mr. Buttons, is the value of this property is now saved inside this variable. So when you do dog.name, it actually gives you the value of that property. So this is the dot operator. Okay? So you access properties in the dot operator. Now,
Do you even need to have dog in there for dog.name?
yeah, because if you just did name,
Then it won't know what to call.
it won't know what to call what object you're calling, right? So now you're calling the object.name. So pretty simple, right? Easy way to call it. Another way to do it, let's say that there is like a bunch of spaces in between. You can just do dog and then bracket operators. So bracket notation. And then you put this in quotation marks, the name of the property, and you put legs. And it will give you the same thing. So what's inside num legs? 4. That's it. How about if I do var tails prop equals tails? This is just a string called tails, right? It doesn't really mean anything right now. Just a string. But then I do this. So I do dog.
So it'll give you back 1.
Yes, exactly. So this will give you 1. Now this is a more complicated way of doing it. The only reason you do this is in loops. Use variables and loops. And we'll go over that later. So the way they explained it, I don't think is a right way of doing it. I just want to let you guys know that you can do that. Are you guys with me so far? And yeah? Mhm.
Var num legs
Mhm.
and dog in parentheses legs.
Mhm.
Do you need to put those parentheses in there?
Yeah, you need to put these quotation marks in here.
Okay.
This is the brackets. These are the quotation marks. The quotation marks need to go inside the bracket notation. Or you could have just did dog.legs. So this is the same thing as... The only difference is, let's say there's spaces. So if legs had like, you couldn't do that, right? If there's a space. So if this was actually legs many, or how many legs, then you'd have to use bracket notation. So bracket notation would be able to do this. You just do how many legs. Yeah.
But essentially, that one and the name on top
Yeah.
are the same.
Yeah. Same way of, just different ways of doing it. Alright, so let me put that back. You guys can also update object properties and add new properties to a JavaScript object. So, oops. Let's say that you had a dog again, right? And you wanted to change the dog's name to Lady Beatrice. To do that, you can either do dog.name and just put equals a new value. So now, if I call dog.name, what would I get? Beatrice, right? Very old-fashioned name. Another way of doing it is again using bracket notation. So dog name equals Lady Beatrice. So either way, either one of these would work. If you want to add a new property and value, again, very easy. You just do, okay, dog dot bark equals, and then you just give it a value.
But that won't return anything because you don't have bark.
Well, it will just add it to it, so it won't return anything. But neither is this. This is just you're just changing right now. So you're updating here, and you're adding a new property and value here. So if you did dog dot bark equals wolf, nothing would output to the screen. It only outputs to the screen if you do console.log and you did dog.bark. Now it's going to come out with what? Woof. Yeah. So this is a way of adding a new property. So what actually happens is this happens right here. Because you did this. And what happened over here is you actually did this. Yep. So you can update objects, you can add new properties and values to objects, you can access objects. So objects are pretty cool. And it's pretty easy to do too. You can change them pretty easily. There's no like complicated way of like doing it. It's just you just call the property name, change it just like that using the equal sign. All right. So you guys are getting this really fast. So explain in turn what the concepts we just went over are, and then update your object so that the values of one of the properties is changed, and then add a new property and value to that object. So just what we went over right now.
Why don't you look over the filters? Because it's two different ways, construction methods. I get them confused.
Okay, so what are the two different methods of updating a property? There's one notation, the other one is the other notation.
Construction notation and something like objective notation.
No, that's the way to construct objects. How do you change
I don't
objects?
know. See, I forgot already what they're called.
There's dot notation
Notation.
and
There's which is pretty much the object dot whatever,
mhm.
and then you just type in whatever it is, whatever directs. And the other one's
notation, bracket notation. So yes, you can create objects in two-dimensional ways using constructors and using literal notation. Constructor notation is actually a good way of creating objects because you can create multiple objects using an infinite amount of objects using a single constructor. You look like a monkey, like chewing his arm. Sorry. Are you guys having fun of it? What was that?
Talking about. Oh, you're talking about. I was talking to me.
Yeah.
They were talking about all of us getting Overwatch.
Oh, that looks fun.
I don't know what. Oh, drop some bucks on the game.
Is it $60?
It's pretty much a console game. Because it's gonna be out for not just for PC, but for Xbox One and PS One.
I heard it's a lot of fun.
You know, because there's a ton of characters you can play as.
Yeah, but I heard like the gameplay is just amazing.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was a lot of money though.
Yeah, I want a Titanfall 2.
What?
Titanfall 2.
It's coming out?
I don't know. I want one.
What are you talking about? Titanfall 2.
The first one I loved it, but it just got boring too quickly. Because you get all the stuff, that's it. You already got all the stuff.
Wait, when's Titanfall 2? I've never heard about this.
I don't know if there is only gonna be one. I just said
Titanfall
it.
2? What? Wait, hold on. What?
I just know. I thought they were gonna.
No, GameSpot, yeah. It will be a multi-platform title. Whoa. There's a TV spin-off show in the works.
Oh, did you watch the first one? Or did you watch it? Did you play the first one?
I haven't.
Oh, I love it. My favorite one.
Really?
Lots of it, yeah.
I don't know.
Or back when Assassin's Creed 2, the first time we had multiplayer. That one was really fun.
Assassin's Creed 2?
Or the first time Assassin's Creed had multiplayer. That one was really fun.
I don't remember that. There's multiple?
Yeah. At first it was like, what the hell am I doing? Once you got the class like that was really fun. But that was like too many gadgets and shit. We're back to see this done.
Enjoy
Oh
that.
yeah, I forgot you had a light bulb.
A what? Oh.
So for this one right here, on the top, so for enemies, you put num enemies, for the number of enemies, and then use Y.
Ooh.
But how would I do that? Like call it just one of those.
Oh, okay. So then you'd have to do dog enemies, and then you'd have to use 0. So it would be dog.enemies, and then it would be bracket notation 0. Because you're accessing memory. But I think any use.
So, okay, so 0. I'm trying to think how this would work.
And then the index of the first element in the array is 0.
Okay.
So then how would I get that effing score?
0, 1, 2.
Exactly. So put you in there. Exactly.
Okay.
You guys are getting this pretty fast. I might actually have you guys create a game. Actually, yeah. I can give you guys extra credit for that. I'm trying to give like the students who want more challenges some crazy challenges. I don't want you guys to get too bored with this. Easy. Oh, you guys seem to be getting all the concepts. Okay, so did you guys change your objects? The properties and values? Yeah? Easy enough? Excellent. Okay, now this is the last ones. Deleting properties from a JavaScript object is actually really easy. To delete an object, not to delete an object, to delete a property, you just do delete space, and then depending on the notation, you can use dot notation or bracket notation. So let's look into that real quick. So let's say you created a property. Or let's say that, yeah, actually just create the property. So you create a property, and then you want to delete it. So we don't want bark anymore. So all we do is do delete dog.bark, and now bark is removed, and that's it. So delete is a keyword. It's not a variable, it's a keyword, and allows you to delete any property of any object. So if I did delete dog.legs, what would happen? It would just delete the legs property and the value associated with it. Simple as that. This one's a bit more complicated, and it's not that relevant, but I'm just going to go over it real quick. So let's say that you wanted to, oh shit, sorry. Put these on. So let's say that you guys wanted to, let's say index some stuff, right? And you wanted to use this in a similar way as you do like an if-else statement or like an array kind of thing, where you're just listing different things. So if someone puts in, race, they got 2, then you output second, 3, we third, 4, fourth, 5, fifth. So if you have like a sequential order of events, it can be really good to have an associated word with that. And objects are good. Objects can be good as dictionaries. Can you put like A is, apple, B is Bob, C is cat. So if someone just put in like, a letter or number, then you could get that replaced. It's kind of complicated. Don't really worry about it too much. They just had that as an example. It's not very commonly used. Another, and this is the last one actually, is the testing objects for properties. This one's pretty important because you want to check to see if certain properties actually exist. So let's say if a property doesn't exist, then you're going to run into an error. So things that you want to do is you want to check to see if that property exists. So if I made an object called things, and it has 2 properties, first thing and other thing. First thing has a hat, other thing has pants. To check if this things object has this specific property, right? Things.hasOwnProperty, and you just list the name of the property. So does it have a thing? Does it have a property called first thing? So then it will result in true. Does it have a property of some other thing? Some other thing? No, so that'll result in false. So this is a good way to have a check in place. So you say if things.hasOwnProperty, and then you put, first thing, then say okay, then things dot first thing equals better hat. Otherwise, this will create the property, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you're trying to do a check to see if it has that property, this is how you do it. It's a method called hasOwnProperty. Yeah. So again, this just checks to see if that property exists. Does this property exist for this object? Okay. So with that, man, you guys got this really fast. I was surprised because I thought you guys would be exhausted. Or maybe it's just me. So I want you guys to complete the project update due next week. So 75% of your CSS completed. If you guys have any questions, just email me and I can respond. I can help you guys out. commit and push your changes up to GitHub, and then sign me up as a pull request, okay? And then, of course, we have free CodeCamp modules. They're based on exactly what we covered today. Exact same concepts. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, okay?
Can you go over that last slide, testing objects for properties?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Couple right there.
Mm-hmm.
The if.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the first one. Now the second one, things first thing equals better hat.
So this is
Update first.
the update.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's it.
That part.
Yeah. That's it. Cool. Anyone else have any questions? You guys gonna build some cool stuff? Answer some cool questions? Free code camp? Yeah. Eventually, towards the end of this course, you guys are gonna be using a lot of JavaScript. So I want you guys to understand everything now and answer questions. We're almost actually done with the free code camp basic JavaScript modules. So we'll be getting into algorithm scripting, where we are going to solve problems with JavaScript. And then we're going to start using it really heavily. So make sure you guys understand JavaScript pretty well.
If I have a question, I've been having a couple of the code camp scenarios I couldn't get.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just email you the link and give you the title
Yeah.
and say, hey, what the hell?
Yeah, so the question was, if you have issues with a certain JavaScript problem, can you just send the link and email that problem and ask what the hell? Yes, you can do that. So next week we should be finishing up the basic JavaScript. Then we're getting into object-oriented and functional programming, which is just, again, objects, which you guys seem to get pretty easily. And then the week after that, then we're going to start with basic algorithm scripting. And then if you guys really wanted to get ahead of yourselves, you can get into any of these projects. So there's a lot to learn, but you guys are doing really well. Yeah.
For the intermediate front-end development projects, it tells you, like, for example, on build a random code machine. I haven't had time to touch it, but I want to now. But like, it's telling you to build a random code machine, but
Mm-hmm.
can you make your own code machine? Like, does it have to be random codes? Like, let's say you wanna.
Where is it? It's under this one? Build a random quote machine?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see.
It tells you that it has to give out random codes, but I don't want to do that. I want to make it so that depending on which, like, it'll still have a quote,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll ask the user something, and then it'll give them two options, and depending on which button they click, like, it leads into like a specific conversation or whatever. But it's not really random in a sense, like where you just click a button.
Yeah, that's perfectly understandable. Yeah, why wouldn't you want to do that? Go ahead, yeah.
Because that's not, I'm asking because those are the requirements.
No, that's fine. Like if you guys want to deviate from whatever the specs are and build your own like creative thing, then go ahead and do that. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Show me it after you're done. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Yeah, there's a lot of like different modules to complete in this. And some of them can get pretty tough, but so far it's pretty straightforward. I don't think I haven't finished any of these, so I have to go through these, finish these, finish this, finish this, finish these. I've built one of these before. I haven't built one of these. Have I built this? No, I haven't built one of these yet. That'd be fun. I've used this, haven't done this yet. D3? I've done data visualization, I think. I know this. You guys know this, Git. So some of this stuff you guys have actually done, and like, especially with computer basics. Um, oh, actually, some of these no. It's like the 4 basic parts of computer, computer hardware, chips. Actually, this would be really interesting to read. Computer security, so preventing hacking, source code, the DOM, JavaScript lingo, Chrome developer tools. Man, they added a lot of stuff. I think they're just new. It could be like a lot of stuff. I think they haven't developed it yet. Yeah, so it's coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. Yeah, they haven't developed this yet. I actually know the guy who does this. Like, I don't know him, no. Like, he is like friends with me on like LinkedIn, and we talk to each other sometimes. And he's in LA, and he runs this thing around the world. But he's in Los Angeles, and you can actually meet up with him, or other free code camp places. I think he's in LA. Where's Quincy? Is it Quincy? Is he? That's his. Well, that's his name. I was like, how'd you know that?